Well, good afternoon, everyone. And it is indeed a hot, gross day here in Boston, and it makes me want to move to the North Pole. But I probably won't feel that way come January. So thank you so much for taking time out to hear this talk on nutrition from a fabulous colleague and friend, Kate Walker, who Susan will introduce in a moment. Um, I will just say that a lot of times doctors are asking patients, hey, you really need to eat healthier. And, this means lean proteins and whole grains and all that. Um, Here's the little pulling the curtain aside and the Wizard of Oz and seeing the guy with the levers. We get about 2 hours of nutrition education in our medical careers. Unless we're actually studying this as our academic pursuit, we really don't have the expertise, but we have friends who do. And we often will rely on the dietitians to help us craft plans to make people more encouraged to eat healthier, especially as we age, because our health needs change. So I am just as much of a learner as you are in this today. I'm so looking forward. And to kick things off, I'm going to introduce our moderator, Susan Edgman-Levitan, who is the Executive Director of the Stokel Center for Primary Care Innovation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Russell. So I'm thrilled that we're all together today, and thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. Everyone is muted to eliminate any background noise. So don't worry if you say something and we can't hear you because you're all muted. You can view your speaker and our speakers on the full screen, or you can go to the gallery view in the upper right-hand corner and click on gallery view, and that will let you see the speaker and everyone who has joined us on the town hall today. If your picture becomes jumpy or out of sync, that's usually because you've got too much visuals going on in the Zoom. So if you click the stop video in the lower left-hand corner, it's the little video camera, that will turn off your video, but it will also increase your connection. For questions, please use the chat function in the bottom ribbon. It's right in the middle. And please remember to not ask or share personal medical information, because everything that's in the chat can be seen by everyone on the call today. And I don't think we all want to be sharing all our personal medical information with each other. So today it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Russell, who you've already heard from, who is the Clinical Director of Geriatric Medicine at Mass General. And we're also very fortunate today to be joined by Kate Walker, who is an Assistant Professor of Practice at Simmons University and the Clinical Instructor for the Simmons Dietetic Internship. She is a CDR Certified Specialist of Gerontology with over 10 years of experience as a clinical dietitian, in acute, subacute, and long-term care organizations. As a contract trainer for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetic Nutrition-focused physical exam workshop, she teaches advanced skills in detecting malnutrition and nutrition deficiencies in patients to nutrition professionals around the country. And she is a totally delightful person that I know you all are going to enjoy hearing from. So welcome, Kate, and let's get going.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you all today about eating healthy. So let me share my screen, and I am just going to start my little slideshow. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, just let me know if you can't or if you're having an issue. Okay, so this is kind of my bread and butter as a dietitian, because the doctor said, hey, you need to eat healthier, and we don't really know how to do that. So those of us who are a bit more computer savvy just take to the internet, and then we get really confused because there's a lot of stuff going on the internet and a lot of misinformation on the internet. So I hope that we can have a couple of takeaways today that are maybe a little simpler than you might think, but also some nice applicable pieces for you. So how to eat healthier when we're over 60 years old. So the first thing that I wanted to show you, and I'll make sure that you are able to get a copy of this, is My Plate. So My Plate is a graphic and a tool that is used by dietitians to teach people about how to eat healthy for different populations. Tufts University actually made and adapted My Plate for older adults based on research and recommendations for the dietary guidelines for Americans, sorry. And this just encapsulates some of the special needs that most people over 60 need. So one thing that I want to point out here is that older adults need to focus on protein. I'm sure that you've heard this before, old news, right? But we'll talk a little bit more about that. So as we age, we tend to have a harder and harder time building back muscle. So there comes a point where we might get sick and we might lose a little bit of muscle. And after we are north of 60, it gets harder to regain what we've lost. So this is why we recommend to have a little bit more protein in the diet compared to other adults. That's why we push it so hard. So the other thing that we want to make sure is that you're getting a variety of proteins. So sounds simple so far, right? Focus on protein and have a variety of protein. Now, you can have fish, you can have meat and chicken. These are really good sources that tend to be, well, the chicken thighs anyway, maybe a little less expensive, but they also incorporate some vitamins that people need a bit more of as they age. So one of the vitamins is B12, and another vitamin is, or a mineral is iron. And these tend to be found in animal products more abundantly, and they are better absorbed. So for example, eating spinach, that has a lot of iron in it, technically, but the iron that is found in chicken and meat and lamb and whatever you like to have, that is better absorbed by our bodies. It's easier for us because our bodies are built to absorb that one a little bit better. So it's important to include some sort of animal products, but if you don't eat animal products, there's also a myriad of alternatives, which includes dairy, but also if you don't eat dairy, there's a good amount of grains and legumes that have a great amount of protein that are also very healthy and will add these same types of vitamins to your diet. And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. The last thing that I wanted to mention about the My Plate is that dairy is pushed a little bit, even though we can't all digest dairy. For those of us who can, if you tolerate it and you like it, eat up, because calcium and vitamin D tend to be really strong in our dairy products, especially liquid milk and yogurt. Nowadays, it used to be that the plant alternatives like soy milk or any sort of nut milk, these tended to be very low in the same nutrients as cow's milk, like protein, iron, B12, vitamin D. Now, because of demand, because the market drives it, we actually have better sources because they're adding, like soy milk is adding vitamin D adding protein, adding calcium to their products. So now more than ever, the plant alternatives to dairy are very nutritionally equivalent to the original cow's milk. So if you can have dairy, do include it. If you can't digest it, try finding an alternative that you like and just look at the ingredients to make sure that it has some of those additives like protein and calcium and vitamin D. Okay, so let's move on from my plate and focus on the heat. It is so hot right now. So this really makes me think of hydration and how important it is. I wanted to talk to you a bit just about, yeah, drinking water. Water's great, good for you. If you don't like water, what do you do? A lot of people don't like water, or maybe their tap water doesn't taste very good and the bottled water is expensive. There are so many things in the diet that do contribute to your hydration. So drink it all in and make sure that you're drinking well, especially now as the weather is so hot. So, especially for people who are a bit older, what naturally tends to happen is that we feel just less thirsty over time and we forget to drink. I'm not very good about drinking all of my fluids, so I can't imagine what I'm going to have to really have a timer. I'm going to have to set my Alexa to tell me, you know, when do I have another juice? So water is fine. If you don't like water and want to add something to it, add fruit, add herbs, add even they have little additives that are even sugar-free that you can look at the grocery store aisle, down the drink aisle, find something, try them all, and add them to your water to make it more palatable. Also, juice counts. Yes, it has some extra calories and some extra sugar. So if you're going to drink juice, you might as well get some vitamins while you're at it. So get that 100% juice. You can dilute it if you want with water. If you're not so sure about the carbohydrates, you can cut the carbs in half by just making half water, half juice cocktail, throw some ice and some mint in there, and that's a delicious, refreshing drink. Now, we used to tell people avoid coffee and tea because it has caffeine and it's dehydrating. Well, it turns out that only drinking way too much coffee and way too much tea will actually dehydrate a person. So if your doctor says that it's okay for you to have caffeinated beverages, then drink up. You can have up to 5 8-ounce cups per day of coffee or tea, and it will hydrate you the same as water. I'm going to say that again, 5 8-ounce cups per day. You can't have 5 of the coffees I have. They're like buckets. That's not, that you can't do what I do. Don't do as I say, not as I do. Just your little tea. If you want to have your coffee, your little cup of coffee in the morning, that is counting towards your hydration. You are hydrating yourself. Also, the milk that you add to your coffee or tea, or the plant milks, the milk that you add to your cereal or to anything else, any soups, broths, it counts. All of that fluid counts. Smoothies. Do you drink health shakes like Ensures or Carnation Instant Breakfast? Did you have an ice cream shake today? Yeah, it had a lot of calories, but it also contributed to your fluid intake. So drink up. Also, some lesser known sources of fluid include Jello, gelatin. As much gelatin volume as you eat is also, because it's just has a bit of protein in it. That's also fluid and it hydrates you. And things like popsicles, Italian ice, things like watermelon, very juicy fruits do contribute to your water intake. The one liquid that doesn't contribute to your water intake is alcoholic beverages. I'm so sorry. I know, but you can still have, you know, whatever your doctor says you can have, but alcohol, unlike coffee and tea, is a drug, and it does have a very strong dehydrating effect in it. So for every cup of alcohol that you drink, you should think I've just decreased a cup from my actual hydration for the day. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is focusing on foods with fiber. Now, this isn't just to keep things moving. I know fiber is great. We all know we can have our prunes or prune juice, and that will do us for the day. But let me tell you a little bit more about foods that contain fiber. So the foods that contain fiber is basically anything that grows from the ground. Even iceberg lettuce has a little bit of fiber in it. But having a variety of different types of foods that grow from the ground, which includes vegetables, fruits, and cereals like grains, legumes like lentils and peanuts, and nuts. These all have great sources of fiber. But the other thing that they all have, unlike a fiber supplement, is they all have extra vitamins and minerals. And the more different colors of vegetables and fruits that you eat, the more variety of vitamins and minerals that you get. So the old saying that one apple a day will keep the doctor away is only true to an extent. Maybe have an apple one day, have a pear the next day, an orange, maybe have some carrots with some hummus for a snack. So keep a regular cycle. Another thing and a trick to eating more fruits and vegetables is to keep a different variety in your in your refrigerator all the time. So having novelty inside of your home for different types of fruits and vegetables can actually increase your interest in eating these different fruits and veggies. So one trick to maybe cutting down on concentrated sweet snacks like cookies, which you're allowed to have, but if you want to cut down a little bit and have more fruits and vegetables, then try purchasing the same cookies. I used to not have Oreos in my house at all because I'll eat the whole thing. I'll eat a sleeve of it. That's my serving size of Oreos. Okay. But I started switching and now I buy Oreos and it's always in my house. And guess what? Now that it's been months and months, actually a few years of just Oreos in the house, I'm not as interested in them. You know, I look and I go, okay, maybe, but now I'm more likely to choose a fruit that I'm keeping on a cycle. It's not always the same fruit. So this week I have mango. So this is something that can help and it's a good strategy. Finally, I want to make sure that you know that even though that whole grains, things like quinoa, things like brown rice, things like farro, or even whole grain pasta, whatever you like, try them all. There's no best one. There's just whichever one you like to eat, try to eat a couple of different kinds. Trying to keep a bit more vitamins in your diet by choosing the 100% whole grain will help you get more B12, more folate, more essential fatty acids, some good fats into your diet, as well as the fiber. I also want to make sure that you know that carbs are not totally evil. We tend to overeat them because they're so delicious, because our brains are hardwired for carbohydrates. It's the only fuel that our brains will run on. Our brains don't run on protein or fat, they run on carbs. So that's why people who are on low carb diets tend to be a little more grumpy, not just because they're sad about their desserts. So carbs actually also protect your body from taking down your muscle. So if you don't have enough protein, your body will eat away at your muscle in order to make other things that are a little bit more important, like cell turnover or new liver cells is what I mean, things like that. So carbs actually help from breaking down your muscle because it provides your muscles with energy storage, and it keeps your brain from telling your body, hey, I don't have enough carbs, so let's make some molecules that I can use for energy out of these muscles. We don't store protein anywhere else except for our muscles. So we need to protect them by eating some carbohydrates. Make sure to include your carbs to protect your muscles. I'm sure you've heard about protein. I'm going to go through this very quickly. There's all sorts of protein. There's a myriad. However, I want to point out there's some areas that are more bang for your buck, like oatmeal, like quinoa, like nuts. These all have not just protein, they also have fiber. They also have important vitamins that you don't get from meat. So even including plant-based proteins as part of your diet, not replacing, just include them in your routine, and you will be eating your way towards better nutrition and longevity. And I know we're limited for time, so I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to make sure that you get these resources. There's just a few that just this plate, the My Plate graphic that was on my first slide. And also that's this one. And then another link to the USDA nutrition recommendations for older adults website. If you like to surf the web and find out new things and read articles about nutrition, this is a good resource because it is evidence-based, and this is what dietitians use to inform their care. So this is a great resource to click through. The second one is just the infographic from the Tufts University. If you're on Instagram, try following the Geriatric Dietitian. She also has a website, thegeriatricdietitian.com. She's great. I agree with most everything that she posts, and it's a nice little tidbit a day sort of follow for you. Also, if you struggle with disabilities, either especially physical disabilities, and it limits your ability to cook for yourself or meal prep in the kitchen, here are some resources that you might want to take a look at. This includes Disabled Kitchen and Garden. So this person identifies as disabled. This is a UK-based person. Their language around disability is a little bit different than ours, but it's a really good resource. They have some cookbooks. You might want to take a look at it. The other two links are products that just examples of adaptive equipment that people with arthritis, hand weakness, people who use wheelchairs can maybe use, and it's a little bit more usable in the kitchen than the traditional utensils. So we'll make sure that you get those resources. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. That's as much as of my brain knowledge dump that I can do in this amount of time. So I'd love to answer some questions if you have any. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was wonderful. You're making me hungry, I have to say. So we don't have any questions now, but I have a question for you. And hopefully people will think of other things that they'd like to know more about. So I have two questions. One is that there is a lot in the lay press that I find very confusing about whether it is incredibly important to take a multivitamin every day or whether it's just a waste of money. Can you say something about that?
Oh, both things can be true. So it depends. It depends on what you normally eat. For example, the first thing that comes to mind is if somebody, if my client or patient prefers to eat a totally vegan diet. that's something that I would want them on a multivitamin for, because there's a lot of restriction around that. But somebody who eats a varied diet, it generally can meet all of their nutrition needs. So is it necessary? No. Will it hurt you? Also, no. The most important thing is to try to, well, if you have any concerns about any specific nutrients, then to talk to your doctor about it, and make sure that your levels don't get too low. But
Okay.
you know, I do, it's not going to hurt, but you know, if it kills your appetite, if it makes you nauseous, then you don't have to, you don't have to.
Okay. We do have a few questions coming in. So one question, and I think this is about protein. How many grams per day of protein should people get, and should it be more red meat?
That's a great question. Well, it's different for everyone. Generally, around 70 grams per day is gonna do it for most people. If you want to do some math, our recommendations for 60 plus is 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per every 1 kilogram per day. But for those of you who don't want to do any math, just try to hit between 60 and 70 grams of protein total per day. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that should be enough.
Great. So we have a question about can you say something about the arsenic content in brown rice?
I haven't heard that question in a while. Thank you so much for bringing that up. This was in the news a few years ago, and it was very, you know, a lot of people were very worried about it. Arsenic is found in anything that grows from the ground. It depends on the soil, how much arsenic is in it. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be eating anything that grows from the ground. And I'm going to say something that I used to say, you know, that rice, it's not just brown rice, it's rice that apparently has arsenic in it. If rice were dangerous for us to eat, then everyone in Asia would be dead. Don't you think? It's just such a staple of the diet of other cultures, to the point where if it were going to harm us, we'd know about it by now. So there is arsenic in brown rice, but the amount of brown rice that you would have to eat is impossible for the human body, and you'd have to do it every day for like a year.
Okay, thank you. That settles that. So another question, and this is something that I hear about all the time, is a controversy about eating wheat. Everything is gluten-free. And one thing I have learned, and I'd love for your confirmation, is that part of the problem with gluten is that we've changed so much. The types of wheat, they used to not be as gluten heavy, if you will, as they are now, which is why some people are sensitive. But can you say a little bit about eating wheat and also about genetically modified food?
Ooh, okay. Well, let me start with the wheat issue. So people with celiac disease need to avoid anything with wheat in it, because they are allergic to the protein that is found in wheat. Now, people who might have a sensitivity to the carbohydrates in wheat may have a reaction that isn't allergic, but kind of like lactose intolerance. And the newer research suggests that it tends to be cumulative, meaning which accounts, I think that makes sense. It accounts for, I can eat one thing one day and I can eat the same thing the next day. Why did I have a reaction this day, but not this day? Well, on this day, the only thing I had with a lot of wheat in it, or refined wheat, was a sandwich. On this day, I had a muffin in the morning, and then I had a sandwich midday, and then I had a big pasta dinner. So if we have less of a tolerance to the carbohydrates in wheat, then we might have a reaction. So that accounts for how some people are allergic and some people have seemingly possible sensitivity to it. Whether or not the food system is causing this reaction, there is not enough research to support that. So it seems to be just individualized. It's just, you know, whatever you can tolerate. And that wheat itself doesn't seem to be an insidious thing that is now harming us. Something that I like to point out is that we've also modified corn in the same way in all of our products. And if this theory were to be true, wouldn't this have also happened with corn products? So it doesn't seem to be an exposure, though I do agree that we have a lot more refined foods and foods with additives that we aren't really sure about in our system. So eating more fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grain products, and especially whole cereals, is a nice thing to include a bit more than processed food if you can.
Okay, thank you. Can you say a little bit about what are things to keep in mind in terms of your diet to help a low functioning kidney?
Okay, and I also just I want to make sure that I fully answer the last piece, that genetically modified foods.
Yes,
so again,
sorry.
this is another area where there isn't enough science to back up whether or not genetically modified foods are actually dangerous. I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings. It depends on what it is. But also we have all the food that we eat has been genetically modified. For example, tomatoes are from the nightshade family and used to be poisonous to us. But through farming practices through many years, we have genetically modified tomatoes through botany to get to a point where the tomatoes are fleshy and they actually have nutrition for us and they are not poisonous. So on the one hand, do we need modified foods in our country? Maybe not necessarily for nutrition value. Maybe in other countries, a genetically modified corn that can that is resistant to a blight can save thousands of people. So it's a big topic, and you know, I for our everyday living, I can tell you that there is not enough scientific evidence to show that genetically modified foods are dangerous.
Okay, thank you.
And you said for a low functioning kidney, can you repeat?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. What are things to keep in mind to help a low functioning kidney in terms of diet?
Well, is the kidney already low functioning?
I don't know, but I think so.
Okay, so if you have lower functioning kidneys, then I suggest that you work with a dietitian to balance your diet. If you can't find a dietitian, I can send I can put a resource. I can send a resource that hopefully be put out to you. But that's it's a complicated question, because though there are some guidance, what we need to avoid to preserve our kidney function is highly individualized. So, for example, not everybody needs to avoid potassium, if that's something that you've heard before. You might need to avoid potassium, but you also might not, depending on your medications. So I don't have general information for that, unfortunately.
Okay. Can you say a little bit? Someone's asking about, is there a dairy-free yogurt that you think is good, that this person's not a diabetic, but that is good, that has good probiotics, and that is not loaded with sugar, will not spike someone's blood sugar?
Yes, and thank you. I did get your question. I was going to pull them up in a minute. So I remember this question being about, it sounds like they want a source of probiotics that,
Mhm.
but if you like the aesthetic of yogurt, I find that the coconut yogurts that have added probiotics in them are quite delicious. So try them all. There's so much choice now for non-dairy products that have the benefits of the dairy products. What I would say is look for the following. Look for added probiotics, which is, I'm not going to spell it, but it's called lactobacillus. It's the same thing that's in the yogurt. Look for at least 6 grams of protein per serving, and look for added calcium, just that there's some calcium in there.
Great. So I see that someone's raised their hand. Would it be possible for you to put what you'd like to talk about in the chat? And I'm gonna keep going on so that we do have another question that I think came in before today's session. And that is, this person makes bread in a bread machine and wants to make bread for a friend who has celiac disease. Can you make gluten-free bread in a bread machine you've used for other, flours with gluten?
That is such a great question, and I'm so happy to answer it. Unfortunately, no. It's called cross-contamination. And for somebody with celiac disease, that's an allergy, even just a tiny molecule of that protein from the wheat can get into their system and really harm them. So it is recommended to use separate cooking utensils, separate cooking like pans and pots even to prepare gluten-free. So that I know that's expensive, and I don't think you need to get a whole new bread machine, but I'm sorry, that's the answer. You can't use that bread machine.
Yeah, thank you. Can you say a little bit about the clean keto diet for weight loss?
Weight loss in general is not recommended for people who are older. So whenever you lose weight, you also lose muscle, and it's going to be very difficult to gain it back. So the keto diet will work. It works because it's what we call a fad diet. It's something that is extremely restrictive. It lops off whole categories of food. It decreases your ability to eat your vitamins and minerals the way your body intended to, and digest and absorb it. And though it works, it also shows that as soon as you stop, you gain the weight right back, because it is not sustainable and it is very restrictive. So losing weight and then regaining the weight is also we're coming to learn that this is called yo-yo dieting, and it seems to be actually even less healthy and more it hurts us a bit more than even just maintaining a stable weight a bit heavier. Also, even though I have my issues with BMI, it's not everything, but maybe you'd be happy to find out that an ideal body weight, an ideal BMI for people over 65 is actually ranged from 22 to 32, 26 and 28 being kind of a sweet spot. So you actually have a different BMI normal range than younger adults. So keep that in mind. I hope
That's
that answers
good
your
news.
question.
Yeah, that's very good news.
Yeah.
So also, can you say something about sort of how to address cravings for carbs?
Eat carbs is what I would say. So if you're restricting too much, then you're going to crave carbohydrates. So if you're not restricting too much, if you're having as much as you might need, then first of all, if you can't work with a dietitian about this to verify that you're having enough carbohydrates, you can talk to your doctor about your medication regimen if you're diabetic, and just see if you're under good enough control that maybe you can loosen up a little bit. If you are not diabetic and trying to avoid getting into that range, I completely understand. Then I would say have yourself a small bit of carbohydrate to get that craving down. Choose something with fiber and protein in it as well, so that it keeps you fuller for longer.
Okay, thank you. Can you say something about what kind of diet suggestions you have for somebody with pancreatitis?
Well, avoid alcohol. I'm sorry. Don't drink. But also eating healthy fats, so beneficial fats from nuts and from oils and from fish would be something that I would make sure that you're eating. Also, that's another thing it's very difficult when I don't know everything about that individual person. Nutrition is a little bit different for people who are dealing with a chronic illness. So if you are able to access a dietitian and work with you individually to maximize the things that you can eat, that would be great. One thing that I think is really important, even with some of these diet restrictions to accommodate illnesses, is that the goal is never to have as little of a food or type of food as possible. It is to have as much as you can tolerate. So with pancreatitis, we tend to say, don't eat as much fat and to prioritize beneficial fats. But if you can eat fat, even like, some of those bad fats, I have a whole chicken wing with some blue cheese on it, and you don't have a reaction, then that's something that you're able to tolerate and eat. You can have that. Same thing with, our previous kidney question. Sometimes we are told that we can't have as much fluid as other people. Well, the goal is not to drink as little fluid as possible. The goal is for you to get as much fluid as you're allowed into your system. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And can you say something about what you recommend for artificial sugar? And what do you think about Splenda?
Well, this is kind of a school of thought. I'm personally on the bandwagon for just having a little bit of regular sugar. However, there are some people, for example, who might go to Dunkin' Donuts and get like 6 sugars in their coffee. And that's something that they want to change, but they can't decrease the sugar without it being kind of gross. So for a quality of life, trading 6 whole spoonfuls of sugar in a coffee to a half of a Splenda is a beneficial step. The only thing about artificial sweeteners is that some of them contain things that can cause digestive issues, can cause diarrhea, and also they don't actually give you any nutrition. So my thoughts about them are, if that is what you need to get some fluid into you, like get some coffee into you, or if you would like to have a larger serving of a dessert and you can tolerate it, then great, go ahead. If you're looking to make a change from regular sugar to something else, then I would try just incrementally, very slowly, decreasing the amount of sugar, added sugar that you put in something to allow yourself to get used to a lower level of sugar in the food.
Right.
What do I think of Splenda? I think if it works for you, it's fine. Just you can't have, you know, like 8 packets a day for every day for 5 years. It might cause some issues. So I think the biggest takeaway on some of these types of foods is that I'll say for everything is too much of anything is a bad idea. Too much of anything, too much water. But I can drink too much water right now and really hurt myself. Sunshine is great for you. Too much of it is bad for you, right? So too much of anything is a bad idea. So keep it moderate.
Okay, thank you. And then I think we have our last question. And can you say a little bit about what kind of snacks are beneficial before bedtime that may help? And when do you stop eating before bedtime?
This could be coming from a couple of different angles. So if you're trying not to eat past a certain time, that just for the sake of not eating past, say, 8 o'clock, science has shown that that's not a real thing. So you don't have to limit what time you stop eating in order to make sure that your metabolism stays the same. That's not a thing. So forget that. If that's just eat until you're done, and then you know it doesn't matter what time. However, if you're trying to avoid heartburn, probably stop eating about an hour before you go to bed. Make sure you're sitting up, and give yourself enough time to let that food kind of get out of your stomach and into your small intestine before you lay flat down. If you're diabetic and trying to get through the night without having low blood sugar, then have something right before bed that contains about 15 grams of carbohydrates. That's like 1 slice of bread. It's a half a cup of yogurt, and try to couple that with either fiber, protein, fat, or all 3.
Okay, thank you. I think just a quick question for Monique. Is it possible to post Emily's wonderful resource page in the chat? Or a link to it?
I think I can. There's a lot of information there, and I can also distribute it to those who have RSVP'd to the program today, and also post it to the website when we post the recording.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, unless there are other questions, I think that's the end of our question. Oh, Matt.
I did want to just say that this is such a pleasure to have an expert in nutrition speak to us, because so many times in my conversations with patients, the rules of nutrition from when I was younger and wanting to look fit and be muscular have changed for my body. And I think you did just a great job explaining that. I do worry about weight loss in older adults, because my understanding, and Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, it's preferentially loss of lean muscle that happens with weight loss. And that's the thing that we as geriatricians are always trying to help build when we recommend weight-bearing exercise, because we know that as we age, our lean body muscle mass decreases and our fat content increases. And so I just really want to just draw a line under that. And you know, I appreciate the liberalizing of the BMI, because we also do this in diabetes. People who have very tight control throughout their middle age are saying, why are you letting my A1C go high? Well, the reason is because the risks of tight control are greater as we get older. And so we're a little bit more permissive. So this has been just outstanding. I am so happy that we had the chance, and we'll probably have you back for a part 2. So folks, feel free to suggest additional nutrition content for Professor Walker, because she's outstanding, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to encourage everyone to take a look at the chat because we've posted some resources there that I think are very, very helpful. So this recording will be posted in probably about a week on the Geriatric Medicine website, on the Stokel Center website, and I think it also goes on the MGH YouTube channel. And so it will all be there. Please review it again, share it with friends. And I just want to add my thanks to Professor Walker. This was fabulous.
Thank you so
And
much.
I
for
feel
having me.
like you simplified so much about what we need to be thinking about and doing, that it was incredibly helpful to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for your questions. They were so thoughtful and challenging. It sounds like you're all dealing with a lot and just wanting some answers. So I hope that I was helpful a little bit. And again, like they said, if not, I'm happy to come back and do a whole topic on any of the questions that you asked, because I could have talked for an hour about any of them. So thank you so much. And you're a lovely crowd. And yes, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You also got a thank you from someone who works in GI at MGH and learned a lot today.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you. And just to let everybody know, we're not going to have a town hall in August. You all should be out somewhere or doing something incredibly fun and relaxing. Hopefully we won't have the same kind of heat we have now. And we'll see you back in September. And if you have ideas about topics you'd like to hear about, please send those to MGH Geriatric Medicine at partners.org. So thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.